Racism, why does it happen? How can we prevent it? Well, I wanted to know the answer to those things, so I clicked on this video called Not Being Racist is Just Logical, which, hey, seems fair. I clicked on it, I wanted to see what it was all about, but I was unfortunately very disappointed. The whole premise of the video was racism is deeply rooted in discrimination, and discrimination is deeply rooted in, get this, simply not liking someone who is different.
What is discrimination, you ask? It is when people go, hey, I notice you're different from me, so I guess I just have to be an asshole now. Basically, it's a rejection because of a core element within people's nature. But why oh why do people engage in this lousy behavior? Well, it's simple. Humans despise what is different, what they don't understand.
He also says that it stems from a lack of understanding, a lack of knowledge, which is in essence a lack of empathy. You don't understand another person. You don't know what they're going through. You haven't walked through their shoes. And I unfortunately have to make a video critiquing this because this is such a common narrative people have. They have the idea that racism simply stems from you don't like the other person because of how they look. That's it.
You see those over there? You see them? Yeah. They have done absolutely nothing wrong, but they're blue. I've always hated the color blue. You know why?
Why?
No reason.
This Disney view of racism couldn't be further from the truth, unfortunately. So I left a comment, I said I disagreed, but I didn't really go into detail of why I disagreed. I was left to think about it for a while by myself, and then I thought, why don't I just make a video about this? There's so much to go into this. And even though I'm critiquing the guy, I got nothing against him. He's doing really good. I'm actually very happy for him. This dude, he posted like 4 videos and his channel is like blowing up out of nowhere. Hey, Just Logical, if you're watching this, feel free to tell me the secret. I'd love to know the secret. Please, please. Though with that out of the way, we have to ask, why are people racist? And generally, there are 2 main reasons. They attach negative qualities to a difference or a trait. It's not simply that you dislike these traits. It's not simply you dislike anything that's different. You associate a vice, something wrong and evil, with a trait. And the next way you become racist is you're taught those things. So what causes this? Well, it turns out it's contrary to what Just Logical believes. He believes that people dislike what's different. No, they don't. Not only on an individual level can you see that this is untrue, but throughout history, there are tons and tons of great examples that we as people love what is different. Look at Alexander the Great. When he conquered the Persians, he didn't say, let's eradicate everything. I hate this culture. It's entirely different from what we've had back at home. No, he said, I love Persian culture. This is so interesting and different. And not only did he respect it, but he also started to integrate it and even marry Persian women. That's what he did because he loved their culture and their people so much. Even Genghis Khan did this, and he's extremely well known for, well, loving different types of women, I guess you could say that. But as we know, this isn't always the case. There have been many examples throughout history where they discover a new culture, they discover new people, and they say, I hate this. This is disgusting. It repulses me. Get rid of it. Eradicate everything. So what causes that reaction? What causes them to react so negatively to it? Well, it has to do with the perception of the difference. Sometimes they view it in a positive light and others in a negative light. We don't simply look at things and say, that's different, that's bad, I dislike it. That's not the cause for this. And racism itself is attributing a bad characteristic or trait to that race, to that skin color. And guess what? With racism, it's not at all because of simply they're different or how different. That might come to a shock for many people, but it's obviously the case, especially if you look around the world. For example, American racism is different from European racism. In America, there's racism between the blacks, the whites, and the darker-skinned Hispanics. But if you look at the Europeans, they'll be like, well, what's wrong with you? Why are you racist towards blacks? Blacks are actually great. We actually like the Hispanics also. They'll say those types of things. They'll mock us for our type of racism. But they have their own, actually. Nobody's immune to this. They simply hate gypsies. Everybody over there hates the gypsies, but if you were to actually look at this, based on simply differences, let's go back to that whole narrative. People simply dislike what is different. And by that same logic, if you're more different, they dislike you even more. If that's the case, then why is it in Europe that Gypsies are hated much more than Africans. All of the Europeans I've ever spoken to, they hate gypsies, but they don't care about blacks at all. Why is this? This wouldn't make any sense under the premise that we simply dislike what is different. You have to attribute negative qualities to those differences. According to the diversity paradox by Jennifer Lee, sociologists were actually shocked to find that in many schools that were more ethnically diverse, there would be more racism than ones that were much more homogenous. White students would think better things about black students if they were in a school that was all white, while white students would think more poor things about blacks in more diverse schools. Now you might be wondering, how could I say this? Well, you have to understand, not all interactions between these ethnic groups are going to be good or bad. If you want to eliminate racism, you have to make sure that the interactions between these races are positive. If all the interactions blacks and whites have with each other are negative, they're going to be very racist against them. So what we need is to have positive experiences. And from what we can see, tons of these diverse schools did not have positive experiences. And the whole notion that you simply need empathy to walk in their shoes, to understand them, that's not true whatsoever. According to this data, a lack of understanding and a lack of experience breeds more tolerance. At least this specific type of experience being negative experience. So how do we eliminate this racism? Well, based on what we know, it is repeat negative experiences with these races. So it's like you interact with a member of a group. Group A. In Group A, every time you see them interact with them, the majority of the time they're rude towards you. They're mean, they're more violent, or anything else. That's going to create a pattern in your mind, whether you want to or not. And you're going to see members in that group are stereotypically more of those qualities. And if that stereotype is bad, simply saying, don't have those thoughts, don't see those things, it's not going to work. They've seen them, they've experienced them. It's all based on experience. What you need is to remove that pattern. Remove it by being a positive interaction in their life. If they constantly see that, oh wait, actually, my interactions with them now are overwhelmingly positive. Every time I run into this group member, they treat me well. They're kind, they're sympathetic, they're trustworthy, all the rest. It's going to remove that image in their mind. A great example of this is actually Daryl Davis. He's a black man who befriended the Ku Klux Klan, and he was able to engage in open, respectful conversations. His whole motto was, how could you hate me if you don't know me? And he was able to break that expectation, break that pattern, break that stereotype by having a good positive interaction with these Ku Klux Klan members. And he was able to get them to give up their robes. And the KKK, for all intents and purposes, has to be one of the most racist groups we can ever think of, the least tolerant. Yet they can be changed, their opinions can be changed. And they can be made to give up their robes, give up their lifestyles and ideologies. We have to give up this notion that racists are simply closed-minded and they're taught to be racist. They simply dislike other people who are different. No, they've had negative experiences. And if you want to change that, give them positive experiences to look back at. Look at Irish racism. We didn't eliminate that racism by putting in laws. We didn't eliminate Irish racism out of the United States where we would discriminate against them. We would say, you're not allowed into our bars. You're not allowed to work for us. Irish no need apply. How did that go away? Oh, it just turns out that for the most part, the Irish changed. And now if you actually bring up the Irish being unruly or drinking a lot to an Irishman, they would take it very lightheartedly. It's seen as a joke now. It's not going to be seen as a racial attack. Very few people actually hate the Irish anymore, and they're now seen as white. They weren't even seen as white in the past. Yet it's all gone away for the most part. You don't see news headlines about the Irish being discriminated against now, do you? Yet for black people in America, we've had to work so hard to eliminate racism against them. Yet it hasn't made that much progress. You can't simply try and remove racism by changing the educational system. Despite our best efforts, changing our education system around black people has not really eliminated that much racism. Changing the law to help them also hasn't done any good. Tensions have never been more high between blacks and whites in America, whereas it's not a problem for the Irish anymore because the Irish learned to change their behavior, to change these stereotypes. They removed it. Yet for blacks in America, it still exists. And if you want to remove that stereotype, yet if you want to remove discrimination against a certain group, the people who have the most power in this situation to change narratives, change people's impressions of them, are actually that group that's being discriminated against. Daryl Davis being a great example. The Irish, again, being another great example. Now, some people might not like it when I say to the discriminated group that they should change to leave a positive impression, but I see it as a positive thing. If you dislike this discrimination being made against you, who would you rather have the power to change this narrative? You have the power and the control to stop these things. Every time you break that expectation, if people view black people as uneducated and stupid, for example, lazy workers, you being very sharp, being very gentle, and being a hard worker will change that narrative over time. It's the best thing you can do. And that's all. I hope you enjoyed this rant, and if you're watching this just logical, I have nothing against you, no bad blood between us. I just had to make this video. You're a cool guy, and I'm sure your channel's actually going to do great if you keep at it. Anyways, take care.